we've actually got someone from our own Rotary Club to be recognized for that award. This got started a number of years ago, and I hate Richard Whiston was unable to be with us today. Richard was the one that really pushed to get this program award started several years ago. And I know that we did it for the first few years, recognizing people that were not in Rotary but showed in their lives service above self. And then after we had done it for a while, we suddenly started looking around and said, wait a minute, we may need to recognize some of the Rotarians too from time to time. And so we try to do both as a day to recognize anyone that shows that service above self, whether they're a Rotarian or not. As I said, this time around, it is one of our own that is being recognized. We want to talk a little bit about the person being recognized, but we can't keep it a secret. It's already out, I know. So, let me just tell you right now, a veteran, and by the way, could you set this up any better than to do it here right after we got through Veterans Day, to recognize a U.S. Navy commander who moved to Valdez in 1975 and immediately got involved in this community like none other that I'm aware of. He served on so many different committees, committed himself in so many different ways, and we're certainly glad to have him also as a Rotarian. Yeah, just go ahead up right now and take a bow if you will. I got to know him right after he moved to this area. 1975 was the first year of a lot of things that began here in Valdez. 1975, we started the Waldensian Festival. 2 years later, we started remodeling downtown Main Street. And then the following year, we started the Historic Valdez Foundation. And those organizations that were involved were probably as much involved as anything we had going in this community, and made quite a change in the community. I remember particularly with the Historic Valdez Foundation, the things that they set up in downtown and started recognizing the heritage of this community at a time when we were beginning to see the number of 100% Waldensians, they were leaving us. And that number was decreasing considerably, starting in the mid-70s. And so I, for one, am very grateful, and I'm sure all of us in the community, that efforts were started then to try to get things turned around to start recognizing our heritage with the Historic Valdez Foundation. And Ed had just returned from the Navy when all this has happened. He was put on the Historic Valdez Foundation, and Ed worked. He worked and stayed extremely busy doing this. From the Historic Valdez Foundation and a lot of promotion there with the toward really promoting the outdoor drama, we saw it move forward and become one of the most recognized outdoor dramas in the state. We saw the other efforts in the community to keep our heritage, and one of those things that came from the Historic Valdez Foundation was, what will we do with Valdez Old Rock School? And this facility was the home for about 5,000 pigeons. And it was the home for about 5,000 pigeons for probably 3 years before renovation started. I mean, this building had deteriorated into a nothing. And if you weren't around then to take a look at what this building looked like before the revitalization, it was unbelievable. But Ed served on that committee. In fact, Ed not only served on that committee, I can remember that we were constantly being told about funds that were being raised, And Ed was one of those that knocked on a lot of doors, helped raise a lot of funds to see this school saved. I was, of course, got involved at that time as one of the first, as the first director of the Rock School. And Ed would continually come up to my office and remind me of things I needed to do. He was first president of the Rock School Art first president of the advisory board for the Valdez Old Rock School when it opened. And you can't imagine how appreciative I was. I think he stayed in that position too for 11 years. I think they felt like he was the only one that could keep me under control. But we spent a lot of time talking. And then we came up into the 90s after we got the Rock School open very successfully, and we celebrated the 100-year celebration for the Valdez. Now, I'm actually shocked when I remember back that we actually ended up celebrating our 100th centennial, because there was 3 of us that kind of worked as a steering committee on that, and for that celebration, Park Sherrill, myself, and Ed Bleynat. Now, if you think of putting those 3 personalities together, that centennial was going down a very narrow, dangerous trail, I can promise you. We'd spend hours arguing at Ed's house. But some way, it came through, and we certainly appreciate all the efforts that Ed made in that respect. We had another issue here in the county. Some of you may go back and remember that. Ed got involved in it. I think anytime there was controversy, Ed would find it, and that was with the East Burke Athletic Boosters Club. And those were pretty hot days, Ed. But I think you were really kind of a peacemaker. We had some situations over the football stadium, the different ones, and you came on and I think really helped get that turned around and put things in a different direction. He had a son who was a pretty good basketball player, and that of course kept him involved. Ed Jr. went on to play down at Clemson and was one of the best basketball players this area has ever seen. And Ed was certainly a great promoter of his son and his basketball skills. Those are some of the memories that I have of Ed, and what I can recall him being involved in and how he gave so much. But I've asked Ted to come in and cover some items too that we know that Ed offers service above self.
Well, it certainly is a real privilege to be able to talk about Ed Bleynat to his friends and to his family, and to kind of remember some of the remarkable things that he has done. His volunteerism showed a lot of diversity. To show you how diverse he was a lion and a Rotarian. There's not very many of us that have been able to do that. So you can see now he was reaching out in all areas. He also was a volunteer on the Literacy Council. He was a trustee for the Valdez Hospital for many years. When I worked at Autumn Care, he was always cornering me, trying to get a few clues about how maybe the nursing homes affiliated with the hospital could maybe be better organizations. Of course, I'd never give him any answers because they were my competition. But he'd never stopped him from trying. He was also a part-time teacher at Western Piedmont. He actually went back to school and took financial and computer courses so that he could share some of his experience and knowledge with the students at Western Piedmont. He volunteered at the Trail of Faith. He's been very, very active in his church. He was part of the Men of the Church Assistance Committee. He also assisted a church-sponsored Vietnamese family, taught them how to do lawn care so that they could have some income. And I think even more importantly, took his own life in his hands when he taught them how to drive. He's been an elder at his church. He's been part of the pastor nominating committee. He was part of the 1979 renovation. He is legendary at the church for when he was responsible for the building and grounds. He took that job very seriously and did a wonderful job with that. He also assisted in the sanctuary extension, and he planned and oversaw the exterior renovation of the building, which was completed in about 2010. Another thing that he's done that is probably gonna be truly remembered and respected by many, many people for many generations to come is he has sought out veterans in the Valdez area, and he's recorded some of their heroic and memorable experiences during World War II. There are stories from people in Valdez that many of us had never heard before. And Ed not only interviewed them, but he has recorded that and has captured that for history. He's always had a passion for veterans and their needs, and he always does whatever he can to get them into the system so that they can receive the services and the help they might need. So, as you can see, Ed has truly been an integral part of this community. He's worked in many, many areas to make our community a better place, to make our Rotary Club a better organization. And it is just with heartfelt thank you that we recognize you today. And now I would like to turn it over to the power behind the throne. I'm going to let Mary share a few words.
When I was asked by Ted to come up with some information about Ed, I thought, oh my goodness, where am I going to start? I know some of you will sneer at this, but every year I write a Christmas newsletter, and it is a good, though sketchy diary through the years. So I gave him a lot of information, and I have embellished. I'm going to read you part that they saved for me, and then I have some more I added. So you'll just have to bear with me. Ed used to be the neighborhood snowplow man. He would clear Bleynat Street and driveways before the town could get to it. As the youngest of 9 siblings, he has had to help aging or widowed family members for years. Even today, he helps and oversees yard work for 4 households. When he recognizes a friend that may need a pep talk about a health problem, he's right there, because he's been a person who has also been there. He has taken at least 4 friends with dementia under his wing, taking long drives and stopping for ice cream or other treat. It gives them a chance to enjoy the ride and the caretakers a break. He is generous with others he's generous with other projects as well, and that needs some financial help. Though a number of Rotary projects fall into this category, he has also helped with tuition, those going on a mission trip, those whose food supply is running low, etc. He has always set the highest expectation of integrity and honesty for himself and expects it of others. Now this is what I have added on there. Ed has a true Rotarian's heart, service above self. My personal motto for Rotary is seeing a need and fulfilling it, and he does it well. I was asked to relate a few tales about Ed's role within the family and friends. He has a giving, caring heart. For example, a few years ago, one of the neighbors, we didn't know these people, but their house caught on fire. And after the fire was put out, he and I pooled our resources, and he brought maybe $100 or so to give the family so they could get through the night at a motel or something. He saw that need. He also does tilling, got started tilling gardens, and he has done it for not only family members, but some of the other neighbors. But just like the other neighbors who have needed it, and Ed, they're all getting too old to want to have a garden anymore, so that role is about finished. He has made personal donations to those going on mission trips. For instance, our neighbor who passed away, Ed Pruitt, was very much involved with Indian missions in the West, and Ed gave him some assistance with that. He also has donated to the personal donation, not part of your budget, to people going on mission trips, so they have a little extra if they need something for themselves or something they wanted to get for the people that they're serving. He has been the family go-to guy for years. He has been a counselor, both grief and financial. He's been an advisor. He's been a temporary money bags. Plus, he does the car, house, and lawn maintenance overseeing. He has instilled in his children and grandchildren the same treats. And you wonder where the children and grandchildren are. Well, I'll tell you, they're not here because Michelle lives in Oregon, and she has just returned from her about 10th medical mission trip in Africa. She came from Kenya this time. And at times she has been accompanied by her older daughter, Madeline, who lives in Grinnell, Iowa, attends school there. Madeline has been on mission trips with her mom. Madeline also goes with her dad, who is an orthopedic surgeon. And the younger daughter, Meredith, lives in Oregon, but she doesn't do the mission. Now, as far as our son, Ed Jr., he's a Rotarian. He lives in Asheville. You think that's close enough? Well, he is also an attorney and had a court date set for quite some time. Now, he is also a very much giving, caring person. And one fundraiser I remember they had for a free medical clinic, it was the doctors versus the lawyers in a basketball game. And they called it the Sawbones and Jawbones. Unfortunately, there were many more Sawbones and many younger Sawbones, so they just creamed the Jawbones. And our older grandson lives in Chattanooga. Webb. Elizabeth is in Hong Kong. She can't come either. And Luke is in school in Kentucky. So that's what I have to say about my husband, and I'm proud of him.
Ed, you don't get to defend yourself. Get up okay?
I'm not sure who they're talking about. I don't see the same guy in the mirror. I just have a very short comments I want to make concerning service above self. My brother John was the first selectee, and we've had several auditions, Jackman, Gus Trump, Richard Wisnett, who have been selected also. And I think it's a Waldensian tradition to take care of people. But on the subject of service above self, it's a two-way street. I am probably the biggest recipient of help and service in this club. I came home to Valdez March 3rd, 1975 with 2 children and Meredith. And I was in a deep hole with physical and mental disabilities. I was really depressed and it was tough. This lady here got me through all this with my children. And as I got home to Valdez, I received more help than you can imagine. We chose Valdez to come back to because I had a family and I had brothers and sisters who were role models that I wanted my kids to grow up with. And they had a big influence, and they helped us tremendously. My family helped us a year and a half before we got here. As my career ended, it took a year and a half to retire me. We came here for the good schools, the family, the good weather, and we received help from Waldensian Presbyterian Church. That was my way back into the community, really. I was born in the house I live in Valdez. We moved back to Valdez. And I was able to get into the church and get into some projects. I was mainly interested in buildings. I was on the building committee for 42 years. And there are 3 buildings in my life that are very important. Waldensian Presbyterian Church, Valdez Rock School, and my home, which is going to be about 100 years old in 2 years. All this rock work. My father was a stonemason. He helped build this building. My grandfather was a stonemason. He helped build the church. He was also the first Sunday school superintendent and an elder. And my brother John was huge in the Presbytery, Concord Presbytery, as a peacemaker, going to churches that were in great distress and working out solutions. We also received tremendous help, I have personally, from the medical community. Here in Valdez, the Veterans Administration, this is not something to brag about, but I've been in 16 different hospitals as a patient. And every one of them was a good hospital, and I got help from all of them. And these people, these medical people, including John and other people that I worked with at the hospital, always place service above self. Dr. Powell was one of my good friends, that some of you know. We roomed together in college. We grew up together, lived about 300 yards apart. And I thoroughly enjoyed that time in working with one foot in the community and one foot in the hospital to make both of them successful. And some of the results, John, that you see that we sat and worked with are these clinics that we never had before, medical services we never had before, all due to these medical people who do service above self. And again, I received service above self from all the medical facilities that I was with. My brothers and sisters, there were 8 of them living. Unfortunately, Emily's father lost his life in an automobile accident with her brother. In 1973, it was a bad year for the Bleynat family. It happened to him in February 17th, 1973. On Veterans Day, Sunday morning, November 11th, 1973, I was chopping wood in my backyard in Maine, and whammo, I had a big one, and that ended my career. But my brothers and sisters helped us raise our children. My brothers helped renovate the house. They did all the work. I was not able to do the work and hired people in, but they were just there every day after work, coming in to work on that old house. They loved it too. They were raised there. They lifted us, Meredith and the kids and I, out of that big hole that we fell into and got out of, coming to Valdez. One of the best decisions I ever made for Rotary was to bring Meredith in on my Rotary Foundation participation. Hey, she was a Rotarian of the Year the first year. And she's been a great value to this and a great value to me. And she was a teacher when I married her, and she re-educated herself here at Western Piedmont and became a nurse for 18, 20 years at Valdez. She knows more people in Burke County than I do. And it's just, I've had 43 good years here that I didn't look forward to. My prognosis was, son, if you fall over down, I'll take care of you for 20 minutes. That's what I came out of the Navy with. And all of you people and all the people in Valdez and all the services I have talked about, I am a recipient of more service than I have ever given. I thank you for honoring me with this Service Above Self award, and I hope I can humbly accept it. Thank you.
I am proud to present you with a plaque, probably to go with your collection of many, many plaques for your Service Above Self Award for 2018. Very well deserved.
Do any members of the family have a quick word you would like to have?
Well, I'm the oldest niece.
Just Effie.
These two would cry anyway.
Yes.
But those, I will too. Those big, long arms of his have protected, helped, and loved. We're so fortunate. We love you.
And I know I speak for all the Rotarians of the Valley's Rotary Club, that we love you too.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. Chuck?
One of the
Chuck.
things, yes,
I would like to say something. I'll blubber, but I would like to say, Uncle Ed alluded to the fact that I lost my father, his brother, in '73. And I was an 11-year-old. And one of the things I remember my mother saying to me after the tragedy and after I lost my father and brother at the same time, and I remember my mother saying one thing in particular later on. If you ever get to a point where I can't handle you and you won't listen to your uncles, I will send you to an all-girls school. And so I always knew growing up that I had multiple parents to answer to. They cared for me while I had my wisdom teeth taken out right after my mom's death. They have, Uncle Ed paid my tuition after my mom died. And he did so saying that my dad had helped get him through school and he wanted to help get me through. I can't say enough about the man and the woman sitting here, because I have always said I was not only blessed with two fabulous parents, but I was given about 10 other sets on both sides of the family. And so God has richly blessed me through these people.
thank you. I want to add, as the chairman for this year's Service Above Self Committee, that we had 7 great nominees for this award. And we've recognized, what is it, 15 years, I believe, 13 years maybe, that this award has been given. And we've recognized good people all the way through. It makes me, personally, extremely proud to be a Rotarian with a motto of service above self.
Thank you.